Okay. Okay, the time is now 5 p.m. and we're going to call this work session to order for the Tipp City Exempted Village Schools. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Stevens, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Drum?
Here.
Mrs. Dillard?
Here.
Mr. Maines?
Here.
Mrs. McMurray will join us later in the evening, and Mr. Thompson will not be able to attend tonight, but we do have a quorum and can continue the meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Stevens. At this time, I would love a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll move that we approve the work session agenda.
Cindy
I'll
moves.
second.
Okay, and Rick second. It's just us. I can throw it in there. Do you guys have anything do you have any discussion on the agenda?
No.
All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Dillard?
Yes.
Maines?
Yes.
Drum?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, so first item on the agenda is the Tipp City Village Administrative TIF presentation. I'm going to put the floor to you, fantastic gentlemen who would like to come and present.
We have Eric, Matt Spoon, and John with us today to talk about the proposal that's on the agenda for voting at the regular agenda of a partnership in order to invest in the community. So Eric, you want to take over?
Stand up here?
Yeah, wherever you want.
Perfect. Yeah, well, good evening. I appreciate the time today and the willingness for the school district to listen to our presentation. So, Eric Mack, City Manager here. I think I know there in between near Kenna Drive along Main Street. Essentially, to make these projects work, we really need the cooperation of the school district. So that's what we're here to talk about. And specifically tax increment financing for the project. Okay, I think and please stop me with questions or dialogue. I have Matt and John, please jump in as well if needed. But basically the TIF model is, so there's a property, let's take the long property, the 60 acres out there as a good example. There's an existing tax base that the school receives for revenue right now for that, and we'll get to the specifics on the next slide. So that's the base tax, right? So once it's redeveloped, that property tax is going to increase. So essentially, we're asking the school district to split that increase in revenue so the city can offset our investments for the development of that property. Does that make sense? Specifically, without this TIF, the projects don't work. We need the school district's help to make it work. Otherwise, it will continue to be a farmland specific to the example of the 60 acres. So the city is requesting a 75-25 TIF for a 30-year term for these projects. So here we have broken out projections of the existing property tax received by each parcel, and then the projected increase after development of the school district's portion, the 25% portion of the property tax, the increase there. So as you see, that we believe that this is a really good deal for the city, also for the school district here. Matt, do you have any other comments on this?
No.
Okay. So as you see here,
I would just say one thing, going back to the 30 years. They need board approval for 30 years. However, for 10 years, they can do this without board approval.
thank you.
So that means that they could just enact this 75-25 split for 10 years, and not be having conversations with us, so I appreciate them coming in for this.
So, Eric,
Yes.
is the 46,779 per year?
That's per year, yes.
Okay.
So we have totals broken out on the next slide here, but before we move on to that, just a quick note. So the city, we're investing about $18 million on these, the two major projects are the plaza and then the 60-acre property there. And I think we all understand, the goal is to redevelop the plaza, mixed use, and then the goal for the 60-acre property is a commercial district with the intention of attracting a grocery store as a retail anchor. Okay. Again, $18 million. We plan to leverage the TIF as a piece of that to recover those costs. And then again, Aaron mentioned the 30-year term. We can just move forward with 10, but we need a longer term to recover those costs. However, if we do recover them before the 30-year term, the TIF ends early. Okay.
That's good to know. So that, I had a question about, will the city continue to own all the properties then? So the city now owns Tipp Plaza and the long
Right.
property and the greenhouse. So you won't sell the properties, you'll just have businesses on the Tipp City land. Is
No.
that-
Long term, no. We do plan to transfer ownership at some point to private development. The TIF continues on though. That agreement
Okay,
stays, so there will be no change there
okay,
through this process. Once it's enacted for the parcel. So regardless of sale of property.
So if that TIF did start though, for example, with the long property,
Yeah.
if that did stop, then we would get the entire, 46,000 times 3, basically 70, so it'd go way up and we'd receive 180,000 a year.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then once that 30-year term ends, the TIF goes away, and then the school district gets 100% of that again.
Okay. So anytime the TIF goes away,
Right.
we end up getting 100%.
But whatever's on that property.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the blue numbers are our base numbers that we're receiving currently,
Today,
correct?
correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody.
Yeah,
understands.
blue numbers on the left are current numbers today. And then the right are projections based on, very conservative estimates. So I'll say those don't include any anticipated increase in property tax in the next 30 years, which we assume at some point there will be, right? And then there's also like the 60-acre property. Right now that only anticipates development on about a third of that, about 20 acres. So, if that other 40 gets developed, that number goes way up above and beyond that as well.
those are pretty impressive numbers. I mean, percentage wise, the greenhouse property is almost a 300,
Percent. Well, it's a little
200%.
increase, yeah.
Yeah, 200%, and the long property would be what, 800%? 800% increase.
And
That's
right.
a lot.
And I think, the reasoning there is just they're vacant properties today with no improvements, no buildings or structures on them today. Okay, next slide. So again, conservatively, we believe that these projects will generate about $2 million in additional revenue for the district. Again, I mentioned it's a conservative estimate, but I just want to, I think sometimes with TIFs, you hear the school district's leaving money on the table because of that 75-25% split. But I want to be very clear, it's not true, because without the help of the district and this TIF, the project doesn't move forward. And it continues at $600 a year for the vacant farmland there on the long property, as an example. So, and the other point is this TIF alone isn't the only tool we're using to help recover our investment. We're also looking at an NCA on the property. It's a new community authority. It's essentially their service charges that allow, essentially what it is an additional sales tax on things purchased on these properties of 0.5% is what we're looking at, or 1%, to again help recover those costs for the city. And again, it's about an $18 million total investment for the city. So total projections for the schools is just over 3, but again, part of that is existing. So it's about $2 million in additional revenue. So just final thoughts here. We really see this as a partnership opportunity between the schools and the city here. It's a great revenue source, we believe, for the school district. This project we don't see as an impact to new students for the district. And again, it improves the community with the revitalization of the plaza and hopefully, I think, a community goal of attracting a grocery store. So with that, I'll see questions, comments from the board. Comments from, I think, John Green, Finance Director, Matt, before I...
The only thing I would add to what Eric said is just the realization that we're giving you what we think are reasonable, conservative numbers. The TIF actually doesn't go into effect unless something develops on the property. So if it takes us 3 years to get an anchor store out there on the loan property, it'll still be the $600 until something's developed there. So the TIF becomes effective on when there's something there that increases the value. So the district isn't going to be hurt by this. It really can just be helped.
And that's a good point. So the TIF timing begins when a property or a piece of a property, like the plaza, we envision splitting it up. So 30 years begins when the project is developed on that piece. Okay, so just want to make that clear as well.
Yeah, it's an investment into the community.
So what's your anticipated timeline of when you think businesses will get in there?
So I mentioned so the plaza is a good example. As we know, there's existing businesses in there today. We don't anticipate large redevelopment efforts taking place until some of these leases expire and they're a few years out. However, like the old Burger King site, there's interest today in that. So that's one where we would potentially carve that out. And we have interest from, commercial businesses today in that. We would anticipate that would be developed rather quickly in the next year or two. So it really will be a phased approach. And then the same with the 60 acres. It's hard to say right now. I know there's a lot of rumors swirling out there. Like Rick, we talked about it Rotary, but we have no concrete plans today. Really, once we get this approved, we need to just go start, working and having further discussions. So I can't answer that today because there's a lot of unknowns still with this project.
What are you hopeful for a date out? When are we going to get a grocery store?
So
I knew that was coming. I just was going to say it.
Let's get dots. Isn't that what it's called? Dots and dates.
Yeah, and again, we've had conversations with a number of folks, but they're all very preliminary. So it's really hard to say. I mean, our hope would be 28, 29.
Best case scenario on the loan property is 2 to 3 years. By the time they do their due diligence and they'll have to
Transfer
have
property,
engineering plans,
construction,
to get everything done. So earliest 2 to 3 years on the loan property, and then the plaza would just be kind of piecemeal as some of those leases expire and we can get in and do the things that we need to do on that property.
So you wouldn't wait until they're all expired and then potentially take down and rebuild?
There's really only one in there that's detrimental to the plans that we've got, and it expires in 28, I believe.
20 what?
28.
Oh, okay.
28.
They said 2080 for a second. I was like, all right,
The CBS lease is a long-term lease,
Yeah.
and they're doing good business there, so we expect them to be on that property for an extended period of time. But there's one other one that would prevent us from moving forward, at least for the next couple of years. But we're going to do what we can around that, the old Burger King property and some of the vacant stores now might have somebody in them for that time period.
And the reason there, I think we see interest now, which is positive. So we want to, capitalize on that, like the Burger King lot and some of those, and just start to hopefully recover some of the city's investment too, and show the community that, hey, we are taking progressive steps to redevelop this area. So
How about the luxury apartments? When are they gonna get started?
that would be after that 28 year with, and then there'd be demolition, design, I would guess in the 2030 time frame roughly for that.
And I apologize for being late, but have you visited other urban redevelopments such as that? Because I know I work in Columbus, so I'm around it all the time. Upper Arlington, Dublin, et cetera, to see those possibilities.
We have, and even, there's some ongoing ones here in the Dayton area.
Yeah.
And even with the same development partner that we're using, Woodard Development, so very familiar and have had conversations with those communities as well,
Awesome.
who are a little further ahead in the process than us, and
Yeah.
have had positive conversations with them as well.
Awesome.
So again, very similar format, and cities like West Carrollton, Springboro is another one.
Yeah.
That have two active projects, very similar with the same development partner.
Any other discussion?
I think it's great what you're trying to do for the community. I really do.
It's a lot to take on, so.
Well, we certainly appreciate the consideration, and we hope the partnership with the school district, because again, without the assistance, it really doesn't work. So really we value the relationship with the district, and hope that you consider this. And again, we see it as a win-win, honestly, for both organizations. So.
I think it's great for workforce as well. I remember when that plaza was booming and everybody worked at Schmeel's Market, right? So, having some options for our emerging workforce and our existing workforce as well with these things that are going to come in. So.
So how many surveys did you get back out to the community? I never seen a survey like that ever for the city, and I was really pleased to see that.
Yeah. On the comp plan, Matt, do you know how many exact?
Not quite 1,000, but over 900. And we really expect another wave when the schools get back in session. We're going to have another specific effort to get the high school age, and I think 7th through the rest of the high school survey as well. It's a little bit modified, but very similar. And so we're hoping to get that done by the end of the past season, but unfortunately we didn't get quite enough time in there. So we're looking for a couple hundred more surveys late August.
It was fun reading those.
Yeah. Yeah, all kinds of good feedback. So.
All right, well, do you guys have anything else? No? Awesome, thank you guys so much for coming
All right.
in and
Thank
giving us
you.
all the information. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Dave, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the attendance policy review. Mr. Moran?
So I wanted to, everybody has in front of them the attendance policy and then the a kind of a visual of what all could go into place before intervention comes into play. And one of the things that we're really looking at is, again, we think it's important to be at school, and we should promote that. And with that, at the end of the school year, looking at what are some of the concerns that we have. Attendance is one of them. And when we look at the board policy and how it allows for essentially 20 days of excused absences, 10 can be considered medical without a medical excuse, we think that is excessive. And that's even just getting into a plan to make sure people are aware of it, and letters being sent home, phone calls, things like that, to match the attendance policy of the state law. So we're looking to come up with a revision, and I've shared what all those buckets are, what to be, but the bottom line would be 10 days of parent excused absences are allowed. Medical would require a medical note, and those types of things just need to get worked out and figured out how to make it easier to understand, but also, again, support students to be here at school to improve the learning environment. What are you guys' thoughts on that 10 extra days of medical excuses? That's highlighted in the policy that you have. I think, again, back then with COVID and when this was done, there's probably a piece of that, because you got to quarantine for X amount of days, and with who could be there and what your requirements were. I think we're past that now. And I think we need to reflect the policy needs to be updated to reflect that too.
As someone who would have students that would be absent and not knowing that they were ill and that something was really wrong, I think that this is a great way to at least open doors for communication a little bit more, to say, is everybody okay? Are they, what can we do to help support? Maybe something has happened medically, but how can maybe they are still able to receive, educational services, I know in-home tutoring or things like that. So I think it opens those doors to just say, hey, reach out, are you okay? So.
And I don't think everybody realizes how many days they miss until they start
Absolutely.
adding up, and it can steamroll pretty fast. So if we could intervene sooner to help out, I think that be supportive would be the goal.
I think sometimes too, seeing it in numbers also helps, because in my mind I was like, 20 excused days, like, okay, but then when you think about that being 140 hours, like that's a lot of time out of the classroom getting instruction.
In addition to all the other ones that can be excused.
Yes. So, I think cutting that down to 10 is a smart move overall.
And again, that's just for notification purposes, for making phone calls and letters to try to see if there's some issues. And again, maybe go hand in hand with grades, they should.
Yeah.
Try to be supportive and intervene sooner.
And then I know some of these are like non-negotiables too. So
Some of the law spells out some things.
Right.
Correct. There's this expression days. Those are 3 that are part of the law. Some of your very quick questions that you have thoughts.
Well, can you summarize, what is, because we got these different categories on here, which, I told you I got a little confused on one of them, but I think I straightened that one out. But, so how many days are the kids allowed to be absent without any excuse?
Any excuse is 0. Those are unexcused absences.
Okay.
Right? Truancy, that's
Okay,
there's
that's
a
what I wanted to
disciplinary
make
piece
sure.
of that. But the law has excessive absences, and they have habitually truant absences. So they're kind of 2 different buckets that play into that. Absent without excuse, there's a lower threshold for intervention and things like that. Excused absences with parent phone calls and things like that is a higher threshold, but there's still there's processes we need to follow with that. And then when we have them, when parents can call in additional 10 days of saying, hey, my son or daughter's sick, those according to the board policy do not count towards absences, just like doctor's note wouldn't count. So those are the things that would help clean it up. So you still have unexcused absences, excused absences, medical absences, and probably like school-related absences, like a field trip or maybe the college visitation and things like that. That's the stuff that would, getting into the weeds, would have to spell out for everybody, and they're working on that piece.
Okay.
Yeah, to come up with a final.
That's where I got a little confused.
This,
It is confusing
yeah,
at times.
there's a lot.
Yeah, because there's a lot of reasons to be out of school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it gives some authority to principals to, again, know what's happening with families to decide this isn't, this is okay, this isn't. And given, again, hey, you're late to school because you got in a car accident, well, I don't need you to, I don't punish you because you had the accident,
Right.
it's an accident, right? Those types of things. So just some of the nuances, but we need to come up with a list of things, a bucket, so to speak, and be clear in communicating those. So look for some of those to be coming your way in June, August, or excuse me, July and August,
So I know that.
as they finalize that one.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds good.
all right.
All right.
And then the only other thing, once we're done, this is some of the brick that we're looking at for the
Okay.
new school, but also the bus garage. Look it over, see what you think, or some good comments during the break.
Okay.
We're
It's exciting.
discussing those.
I do have a question about the attendance. So, it's been a long time. I've been retired 10 years this month. So attendance policies have changed quite a bit since I was principal, but it used to be the most important week for attendance was back in October, attendance week, and it was based on, that's how you got your budget.
Student count week in October is gone away. We now report students throughout the year. We have to report them, and they are done through EMIS, and the state pulls those on a monthly basis, and our funding varies from month to month, depending on the ADM we have at the time.
So the attendance still is pretty important.
Attendance is always important.
Yeah, very important for our funding.
Yeah, because when it was count week in October, it was get the kids here in October, and then,
Yeah, and then the rest of the year, whatever.
right, I mean, schools, as an auditor, it was the joke that schools would get the kids on the buses and go pick them up so that they all were here in October, and it was nowhere near that number at the end of the school year.
Yeah.
And again, then switches, it's probably right around that time from days to hours.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
changes in law came into effect as well.
And then COVID changed everything.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, hearing no other discussion, we will now move to adjourning this work session. So I would love a motion to adjourn the work session.
I'll motion.
Moved by Mrs. McMurray.
I'll
Is,
second.
okay. Okay. All right, so moved by Mrs. Murray, seconded by Mrs. Dillard to adjourn the meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote.
Murray,
Yes.
Dillard,
Yes.
Drum,
Yes.
Maines.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. The time is now 5:29, and this meeting is adjourned. We'll reconvene.